Hello again, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Sportsbook Confidential, the Thursday edition. My name is John Sullivan. Look up the correct spelling of Talladega. This is one of them. It's a restrictor plate race, of course, so lots of value on the board, and we'll talk about who we like there. And that'll do it. A nice light week. So before we get into the Sportsbook lesson, let's do what we always do and update my bankroll. And it was a 0 for week last week. I guess Ricky Bobby was right that if you ain't first, you last, because we had Denny Hamlin for the second week in a row. He was leading the race in the closing moments and lost the race. He finished second. So our wager was a loser, minus $9 to the bankroll. And in the Formula One race at Imola, it was bad weather to start the race. Lewis Hamilton got into another car on the first turn, Max Verstappen. He damaged his wing, and by the time he got into the pits and repaired his wing, he came out in ninth place, and he finished in second. He passed all the other cars except for Max, but it was just simply too much to overcome. So once again, minus 9 to the bankroll, and we had a little hedge on Valtteri Bottas, excuse me. He got in a very serious wreck. He walked away, but it looked very bad, and I'm glad he's okay. Minus 4 to the bankroll. So if you do the math, that looks like minus 22 to the bankroll, and that makes our new bankroll, it's actually 259, but I have 258 here. And it makes our bet size going forward $8. So a little drop there this week. We had a couple of winning weeks, and we've lost our momentum, but we will see if we can go in the right direction this week. So let's talk about betting versus lifestyle. And here's some general questions that I would ask you if you ask me, well, what should I bet, or what betting strategy should I use, or how do I get into sports betting and, not just lose my shirt? So I would ask you these questions. Do you work or are you retired? And this, of course, assumes that you are of legal betting age and you are smart enough to bet with money that you have set aside for sports betting, and you're not betting on credit or doing any of those awful things that get people into trouble that are the basis for all of those awful sports betting movies. Are you a day person or a night person? That's actually pretty important. Do you watch a lot of sports? Do you watch them in person? Do you watch them on TV? Do you consume a lot of sports content? Do you read a lot of blogs? Do you watch a lot of YouTube videos? Do you we don't really have that many newspapers and magazines anymore, but, they exist. And how much time do you have to dedicate to wagering? This is also very important, because it's not just I watch a lot of sports. That doesn't necessarily mean that you can find the best wagers just by watching a lot of sports. You may have a good idea of the relative strength of two teams, which one is stronger or more likely to win. But that doesn't necessarily mean you know exactly what the best wager to play is. So considering how much sports you consume, how excited you are about wagering, what you have, family commitments, you have work commitments, like me, I'm going to school this summer. So at, 55, so you might be a student like me. So it depends on how much time you have to dedicate to it. So we're going to talk about some strategies. After we learn a little bit about you by answering those questions, we'll have some different strategies here. And I have here fitting strategy to time. So free time, fully dedicated, build models, attack markets. And so if you're like, I want to be a sports bettor, I want to try to make money at sports betting. It is they say about poker, a hard way to earn an easy living. It's the same with sports betting. But if you are going to be a full-time sports bettor, you will want to build models. That's not to say that you can't find edges qualitatively, that you can't find edges without models. You can. But this is the time-proven method, is build models, determine which teams are stronger through spreadsheets and coding, and then attack the markets. For example, an NFL game comes out, NFL game's played on a Sunday, the lines come out Monday morning, You've got 7 days to find inefficiencies in the marketplace, which means you're going to be looking at computer screens a lot, waiting for numbers to come up that are suitable for your bets. That's for somebody who likes coffee and has nothing else to do. And you will hear a lot of professional sports bettors talk about how it's not that they get burnout, it's just that they get fatigue from doing that all the time, and they want to do other things. It is, again, you have to be selective and you have to find the right work-life balance. The Weekend Warrior. Find weekly sports that will work with your schedule. Football, golf, motorsports, etc. I'm sure there's other examples. Those three came to mind instantly to me. If you have, you're a Monday through Friday work guy and you have the weekends off, find some sports that play on the weekends that you can, gives you 3, 4, 5 days to mull over your wagering options. So you can, Friday after work, you can hit it for a Sunday event, and you'll be good to go. Obviously NASCAR races a lot of them are on Sundays or Saturday nights. You have the golf tournaments. Usually they have their final rounds on Sundays. Obviously NFL games are on Sundays. College football games are on Saturdays. Those are sports where you can all week, in your leisure time, on your lunch break, whatever, can consume articles about the upcoming games. You can take a look at the lines during the week and see which way they move, and not have to pull the trigger until you are free and clear from all your work obligations for the week. So I'm sure there are other sports that fit into that. Tennis usually has their championship. If you're into tennis, boxing is usually on the weekends, pay-per-view, MMA, that kind of thing. So a lot of good options for a weekend warrior. The true home team fanatic. If you cannot bring yourself to bet against your team, if you have a fanatic, you have a cardboard cutout of your favorite sports star in your living room, or your favorite coach. Let's say you're a huge Syracuse Orange fan. If you can't bring yourself to bet against that team, you should never bet on that team ever. Instead, bet on games involving division rivals or common opponents. So if you're a Syracuse fan and you're a diehard Syracuse fan, you know a lot about the Syracuse team, obviously, but you also know an awful lot about Boston College. You know an awful lot about Duke in North Carolina, in Virginia, in Wake Forest, and all these other teams, NC State. So you would want to wager on Duke, North Carolina games and NC State, Wake Forest games. And that's where you can use your expertise without succumbing to the bias of I have to root for my home team. Because you want to make objective wagers. You want to take the homerism, for lack of a better term, out of it. So if you're a huge Jets fan, I really feel sorry for you, but instead of betting on the Jets, bet on the Bills and the Patriots, and bet on the Miami Dolphins. And those games, you will be very familiar with those teams and their personnel and their coaching styles, and if their kickers are any good. And that's where you will find your niche of expertise, because that's already built in to your super fandom. So if you're a home team fanatic, just remember to lay off the home team. Look how it didn't work out for Pete Rose, so that's all I'm saying. Appointment viewing. So if you block time out for specific games, consider live betting during the game. You'll find many opportunities. So for those of us that live here in the Finger Lakes, obviously we have to go to the Sportsbook to wager on sports. But if you block out time to watch certain games, then you would want to go to the Sportsbook and watch the game at the Sportsbook and then live bet during the game. If you want to see the Cowboys and the Giants at 4:00 on a Sunday, and you go to the Sportsbook and get some chicken wings and watch the game, and then, the Cowboys are favored by 7, but they go down 10 points early. You think the Cowboys are still going to win the game? You can go place a live bet and get a great number on the Cowboys. That is something we cannot do in New York State because we don't have online mobile wagering yet. We can't do any live betting. We can only bet, we can only bet pregame right now. So unless you're in the sportsbook during the game. So that's what I would recommend. If you live in another state that has mobile wagering, again, I would do that. I would get ready. If you're getting your popcorn ready for the game and your chicken wings ready for the game and your whatever favorite vegan food you have, get your phone ready to play some live wagers because you will see opportunities. You will see chances to bet, second half overs, second half unders, second half sides, and things like that. And if you're not familiar with those terms, then I guess we could do a sportsbook lesson on live betting at some point. But I really wanted to wait until it rolled out here before we got into live betting strategies. I really don't live bet much at all, and there's many reasons for that, and we'll talk about them someday soon. So we got a few more here. Super casual sports fan. Yo, bro, it's all chill. If you only browse the sports page occasionally, consider betting futures. You can find extreme value, and you will quickly learn how to hedge. If you followed the show this last year, you'll know that I did not hedge on most of my futures, and I paid the price. That's not going to happen again, I don't think, going forward. But if you're somebody that works a lot and has a family, and you don't have a lot of time to dedicate to sports betting, but you like to follow, you're a baseball fan, you like to follow baseball. If you're a football fan, you like to follow pro football or college football. Bet on a future, bet on a national champion, or bet on a Super Bowl champion or a World Series champion. And for a very small amount of money, you can win a lot, and you can, have a sweat, as they call it. Have some skin in the game all season long. If you go into this year's baseball season and you say, hey, the Dodgers don't look as good as they did last year. The Padres might, win the NL. Or you see, the Mariners don't look too bad. They're not as bad as everybody says they are. Well, they're 80-1. So throw $15 on, throw $15 on the Mariners and win, $1,400. So if it came in, obviously, but the point being that for a very small amount of money, you can put a wager on the championship, and the wager will last all season and give you the pleasure of having a reason to follow a certain team and check the scores every day and check to see if any trades had happened or things like that, or injuries. And I recommend that. I'm getting more and more into futures. I'm actually, getting ready to look at my NFL futures as soon as the draft is over. I'm going to start planning my NFL futures. I think there's just great opportunity for value for very little, putting up very little work. I work second or third shift, and this, you could be a truck driver, you could work in a factory or wherever, or a call center, and you work weird hours, or a restaurant or whatever. Again, concentrate on weekly sports, but also events happening at unusual hours like Aussie Rules or late night West Coast games. So obviously, I love Aussie Rules if you follow the show, and a lot of the games are on at like 5 o'clock in the morning, New York time. So if you work second or third shift, that's perfect. You get home from work and you might be wide awake and you can't go to sleep, and boom, there's a game on. Other things, like, when tennis and golf play overseas and they have their matches at weird hours, when the Australian Open is going on in tennis, the matches are on at 1, 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning. Also, if you're a football fan, you bet college football. They have extreme West Coast games. Pac-12 after dark. Hawaii plays usually late at night. A lot of those games will start at midnight. So if you work second shift, you get out at 11. You got time to fire up a wager and sit down and watch a game. So just consider the schedule of the sports events as you figure out what you might want to wager on, because you're going to see a lot of West Coast teams if you're betting games that late at night. All right, finally, I have more money than I know what to do with. Stop watching this episode immediately and go buy yourself a sports team or an island. I have nothing for you. If you're that successful in doing whatever else you did to get to that point, you don't need to watch this program to make money. So profit is not even a consideration for you betting on sports. You're just doing it for fun. So go buy yourself an island or go to Mars or something. I don't know what to tell you. So that's today's Sportsbook lesson. I hope I gave you some ideas of how you can fit betting strategies into your lifestyle and maybe give you some ideas of how to attack your wagers, how to attack the markets going forward when you pick your wagers. So let's move on to Restrictor Plate Bingo. This week is the Geico 500 at Talladega. And, of course, it's a Restrictor Plate race. There's only 4 Restrictor Plate races, 2 at Talladega and 2 at Daytona. Any car can win with the right help and a little luck. Obviously, they put restrictor plates on the engine that limits horsepower. So all the cars have the same horsepower, and they pretty much all have the same aerodynamics package with, a very minor differences in the cars. Basically, they just put stickers on the cars nowadays to make them look like Camaros or Mustangs or whatever, or Camrys. They're all basically the same aerodynamic package. So the cars are all equally fitted, so to speak, and they can only really pass each other with drafting and teamwork is the idea. But the other problem is, with all the cars running the same, is they're running all out, pedal to the floor, and once somebody gets sideways or cuts somebody off, a big wreck happens every time, sometimes more than once in a restrictor plate race, and wipes out half the field. So you've got 2 basic strategies. You've got some drivers want to get out front and stay out front so the wreck happens behind them, and there's other drivers that just want to ride in the back, not use up their tires, use up their stuff, show their hand, so to speak, and stay on the lead lap and wait for the field to thin out before going for the win. And that's obviously a risky strategy because of the chance of going into a wreck with all those cars in front of you. Avoiding 38 cars when they start spinning out is a lot harder than being in front of it. So there has to be, there are, I'm sure, the teams, have 3 or 4 cars, like JGR has 4 cars, Penske has 3 cars plus an associate car, and they probably have team orders. These 2 run up front, these 2 run in the back, so we have somebody in the mix at the end. As usual, Joe Gibbs Racing, Penske, and Hendrick will be the favorites. Those are the 3 teams that have dominated this year. Obviously, Michael McDowell won Daytona, and it was a very small team. I would expect him to be competitive again. I don't think that they're going to let him win again one way or another. We'll see if the other teams, I think, did not consider him to be as competitive as he was, and either they have improved their restrictor plate programs or they're just not going to work with him this time. So as far as stats go, Denny Hamlin, who hasn't won this year, I've bet on him the last 2 weeks, and he has been in front with just a few laps to go each time and has failed to win. He has 3 wins in his last 6 at Talladega. That's very impressive. That really doesn't mean a whole lot because it's all about, not only do you have to have a good car, but you have to have your teammates helping you, and you have to hopefully not, get, you don't want to be, usually you don't want to be in front if there's a overtime or a 2-lap to go situation because you're not at full speed. You're starting, they do the rolling start, and you end up blocking for the win, and you're trying to stop 2 lanes of traffic as you're going around the racetrack. And it's very difficult to do, and it usually ends up with you getting spun out. So you're going to need that luck factor at the end. However, Hamlin, Elliott, Stenhouse, Amarola, and Logano all have 3 top 5s in their last 6 races here. And that means they know how to save their cars, and they know how to be in the mix at the end. So this is a race I think that it provides extreme value because there are cars that would normally not compete for a win that can compete for a win in a restrictor plate race. So there's lots of cars that have longer odds that will be available that would have a legit shot at winning this race. It's Denny Hamlin has been the class of the field this season. He's leading in championship points, but he hasn't won a race yet. So I'm sure he will at some point, and it could be this week. But this is a race where if you're like me and you're looking for value, you have to put some wagers on some of the longer shots. And let's go right to it. We'll go to my picks, and we'll wrap up the show for today. As you can see, no surprise, Denny Hamlin, plus 650. I'm going to put a full unit on Denny Hamlin. I think he's definitely in the mix here, so I don't feel like that's a bad wager. But I picked 6 other drivers I'm going to put a quarter unit each on. Elliott, 11. Chase Elliott, 11-1. Eric Amarola, 16-1. Martin Truex Jr., 22-1. Christopher Bell, 25-1. Austin Dillon, 30-1. And Eric Jones, 66-1. Though all of those drivers have good restrictor plate records. And I feel kind of guilty not picking a Penske or a Hendrick driver there. But it's all about the odds. And that I think that for the money I'm spending, I'm getting very good odds on all of those drivers. So we'll see what happens. As a bonus pick, I've got an Aussie Rules pick for you. The Sydney Swans having a bounce-back season. They're favored by 7.5, but I'm going to take them on the money line, minus 150. That's a pretty fair price. Not have to worry about the spread. There's been an unusually large amount of close games this season in Aussie Rules. It seems like if it's not a close game, it's like a 75-point win. And if it's a close game, it's usually 1, 2, 3 points. So I'm going to hedge that in the middle and just take the minus 150 there. So that wraps up the show for today. We'll have another lesson for you next week. Should be back on Fridays. I don't expect us to go Thursdays again for a while. We got the Kentucky Derby coming up, so we'll do something with that for sure. And I have a whole bunch of ideas percolating, so please stay tuned. Thank you for spending part of your day with me. I hope you have a great weekend. And I hope the weather turns better for you than it has for us here. And with that, I'm going to play the outro music for you, and let's go get some winners. Take care, everybody.